But I think there's a lot of reasons for its resurgence nowadays. There's a core group who like vinyl because it sounds better than other types of listening. There's also the fact that you can have a record collection for cheap money nowadays if you search. There's a nostalgia aspect, and there's the fact that much of the music that is on vinyl is unavailable anywhere else. There's still tons of music that is unavailable other than finding the original albums. I think there's a resurgence of dorm rooms with turntables in it. There was a lot that happened in the 60s and 70s when records were happening, and I think some people wish they had grown up then like I did. You know? Now, but when you look back at what happened in the 60s, the Civil Rights Act, and famous people getting killed, and etc., and riots and Vietnam War, it was just a different time to grow up. You know, and I think it's connected to records somewhat. I don't know. It's hard to explain. This is a band called the Curtis Knight Band that was a local hard rock band in the 70s or 80s. They probably played in Dover and Portsmouth, probably at the Traffic Circle in Portsmouth. And nowadays, a lot of these local bands that pressed albums and were limited, in limited numbers, have become very valuable because of the internet. People all over the world know about them and bid on them. This is a guy named Danny Gatton, who was a kind of obscure guitar player from Washington, D.C., who committed suicide in the 90s, sadly. And many of his early albums are very collectible. I had another one out of this batch called Danny and the Fat Boys, but this was a colored vinyl one. He had one major label release in the early 90s that's hard to find on vinyl, too. In fact, I haven't seen it in 10 years. This is an original promotional record store poster from the mid-60s for the Beatles' Rubber Soul album. It was sent to them folded. You can still see the folded lines. And it's the third one of this I've had. And when I got the third one, I said, why am I selling this? It's so cool. So I kept it for years, and I've only recently put it up for sale. A gig poster from New York City, club, very famous punk and new wave club called Irving Plaza, where Susie and the Banshees played, and this is probably in the early 80s. I'm not a Kiss expert, but I researched this a little bit when it was sold to me, and supposedly some of the print in there, they used their own blood. And it was highly collectible. I mean, I've had this for a while, but I'm told that they're hard to find. An original J. Geils blues band from 1968, and it's before the famous lineup got together. Peter Wolf was in a band called the Hallucinations, and they joined forces right after this gig, probably in 1969. This is from 68. 1956, when Elvis Presley had just been signed to RCA from Sun Records, and the country people were covering the rockabilly artists down south, and so this was a country magazine with articles on Elvis, and actually has a win a contest date with Elvis, win a date with Elvis Presley back in the day. This came out of a house with a whole bunch of these country music roundups, but the rest of them all focus on country music rather than rock and roll. This is a 78 RPM from the 30s by a blues guitar player named Tampa Red. This blues stuff is kind of hard to find because it generally didn't sell well in New England. It's more of an urban type of record. Of course, the most famous guy is Robert Johnson. His 78 RPMs go for thousands of dollars. And I think Tampa Red, and there's another one by Bill Brunzi on OK. think they were a little bit more popular and they sold better, so you found them more often, not quite as valuable. Yeah, this space back here, I sell a lot of inexpensive records, you know, $1 to $4. It's part of the process of stocking the 2 stores I sell out of in Bull Moose and Portsmouth and Bull Moose and Salem. In addition to selling online, I have tons of 78 RPMs, thousands of 45s for 50 cents a piece. 78 RPMs from a radio station in Rochester from the 50s that are $1 a piece. 50s, I believe. And Blue Note's a very collectible label, especially original pressings. The Japanese actually started identifying, they could actually tell what pressing plant these records came from. Blue Note, of course, had many labels. This record was released up into the 80s, but this is the very first label when Blue Note was located at 47 West 63rd, New York City. Very rare album. This is the Grateful Dead's first album. Original label in mono, which is extremely rare because they weren't making many monos at that time. Very hard to find. The original label, which was gold, most of the time you see the label, the early pressings are green. Maya Angelou wrote a poem for Obama's inauguration, and this was back when she was a hot calypso singer.